From Moscow to the world, this is RT. Great to have you with us today. My name's Ewan O'Neill. Ukraine has fired its Human Rights Commissioner, in part for spreading unverified information about atrocities she alleged were committed by Russian troops in the country. Her removal comes after her claims were widely covered by Western media. Our senior correspondent, Murat Gazdiev, picks up the story. It includes some disturbing accusations.
Day and night, weeks on end, month after month, the world over was barraged with stories, horrific stories of rape and unspeakable acts committed, allegedly, by Russian forces in Ukraine.
Such acts of violence, raping children, little girls 11 years old, repeatedly in front of their mothers, or raping their mothers in front of the children.
With each day, more and more credible reports of rape, killings, torture are emerging.
Hundreds of cases of rape have been recorded, including underage girls, very young children, and even a baby. It's just scary to talk about it, but it's true, it happened.
Women and girls right now are facing the worst kind of fear and violence, and we know already from the analyses that have been done, they've been the victims of not just murder and rape, but kidnapping.
Many of these stories grew to be unbelievable, and that's not a figure of speech. People, including Ukrainian officials and the government, stopped taking them seriously. They became an embarrassment. So ludicrous were some of them. Ergo, the woman behind these stories, Lyudmila Denisova, who was, ironically, Ukraine's Human Rights Commissioner, was fired a year before her term was officially up.
The unclear focus of the Ombudsman's media work on the numerous details of sexual crimes committed in an unnatural way and rape of children in the occupied territories that could not be confirmed by evidence only harmed Ukraine.
Her stories became so ridiculous that even members of the Ukrainian media, which itself is in war propaganda mode, intervened. 89 journalists, together with 51 lawyers and human rights activists and others, penned an open letter calling on her to dial it down, that the graphic stories published by her about months-old toddlers being raped with a variety of objects to rile up the people, that this wasn't productive or, decent.
Sexual crimes during the war are a tragedy of families, a difficult and traumatic topic. Not a topic for publications in the spirit of the scandalous chronicle. We are forced to trust the official information that comes from officials, in a state of martial law a priori. We do not have the opportunity to verify it from other sources. In this way, we are spreading messages from the Commissioner for Human Rights, in fact, taking them on faith.
Essentially, they asked her to stick to things that actually happened. All of these stories can be tracked back to Denisova and her team, more specifically the social media posts made by them, and that's where all the trails stop. Almost all of her rape claims, say Ukrainian journalists, are without evidence or witnesses. Despite her own less than honest approach, Denisova has been a vocal proponent for an international criminal tribunal to apparently bring Russian troops to justice for things that she had lied about.
I think we should look at Yugoslavia and Rwanda. These are the examples that we all know about. There is the UN International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court. We need to push for the creation of a special tribunal.
Naturally, Denisova has been blind to verified reports and footage of Ukrainian troops murdering, torturing, and mutilating Russian prisoners of war, and even Ukrainian civilians deemed to be pro-Russian. They don't get the human rights, apparently. But it is telling, isn't it, when your own politicians who are bent themselves on making the Russians seem as terrible as possible, that they fire you for being simply too outrageous.
And continuing on Murat's piece, conservative talk radio host Steve Gill believes media outlets in the West are slowly beginning to question more the narrative coming from Kiev.
The allegations that this lady was putting out there were horrific. What's even more horrific is that they were just outright lies and intended to create a propaganda scheme that would rile people up and create an anti-Russia mentality around the world, again, based on lies. There are plenty of reasons to question the invasion, to question what Ukrainians have done in the war as well. But there's been so much propaganda that, getting the truth out has been almost impossible. But I do think you're starting to see some recalculation in the U.S. media, at least among some, to be a little bit more skeptical of the stories and the propaganda that's been pushed out. And again, as in this case, just been repeated without any verification or any basis of truth. We saw that with the supposed Ukrainian soldiers who had mocked a Russian warship, and they were supposedly all wiped out. Turned out not to be true. You saw it with the Ghost pilot, Ukrainian fighter pilot that had shot down, a dozen Russian fighter jets. Turned out not to be true. And yet the U.S. media and other world media just repeated those things ad nauseum. Hopefully we're starting to see the truth start to eke out a bit and perhaps maybe heal not only the reputations of those countries involved, but also the journalists who've been either duped or been complicit